Well, good afternoon, everybody. I hope these questions don't seem too obvious or too stupidly obvious, and I hope by the end of this talk we realise they're not, because I think this is a couple of fairly serious issues. So there's no software, there's no smartboard in this hall. Firstly, I assume everybody is familiar with this and studied this at school. Everybody, I don't think there's anybody in the hall who probably don't recognise this. What I would like to ask is how many people have actually used this since they left school? The maths teachers. But, back a slide, sorry. Yeah, sorry, I did this, I didn't realise it. Right, but these things, I assume everybody uses, but how many people studied these at school? I didn't, and I don't suppose anybody else is. So I'm going to start with an obvious question: what is money? When you ask what is money, you get people have an image of something like this, depending which country you come from. So this is fairly obvious where money comes from. And I asked grade 10s and grade 12s where they thought this type of money, and they actually got the question right. I'm a good teacher, obviously. They said that, well, mainly it comes from central banks. The Federal Reserve in the US, the Bank of England in the UK, and the European Central Bank in Europe, and other central banks around the world. And that is quite true. The total amount of cash then in the UK, for example, is £57 billion. That's 19 Richard Bransons, or 350,000 plus houses. Now that sounds a lot of money, but in fact it's less than 3% of the total amount of money in the British economy. And I'm telling you that most Western economies, this will be a similar figure. In the US I would say it's probably even less. In Luxembourg, less still. The figures from Luxembourg are frightening. I'm not going to give you sleepless nights though, so I'm not going to mention that. So where does the other 97% come from? The other 90% of money is created by banks when they extend credit or make loans. Out of nothing. And this is how they do it. Andrew, and I chose Andrew because I couldn't think of anybody on the staff who was called Andrew. After a loan of £10,000 in the UK, presumably, and the bank extends £10,000 of credit to Andrew, and because of the rules of double entry bookkeeping and balance sheets, when you create a liability, an asset, you have to create a liability. So what they do is they put £10,000 in Andrew's bank account. They've created £10,000 of new money, which Andrew can go off and use as he pleases. He can gamble it all away on the National Lottery if he wants to. Very productive. So the total amount of digital money like this in the UK economy is £2,200 billion, that's £2.2 trillion, 733 Richard Bransons, or 13.5 million houses. And to put that into perspective, that's there's only 22 million houses in the whole of the United Kingdom. Okay. So in most economies, money comes from private banks when they extend credit. Very, very little comes from the central bank, or none from governments. Governments in Europe are not allowed to create money directly into the economy. You may not believe that, but you have to accept it. If you ask, it's a treaty of Maastricht. If you ask what banks do, people will give you one of these answers. Some people think that banks act as a sort of safety deposit where you can put your money away and it's safe and they look after it and they won't lose it if you have it. Rock, you might have a bit different views of that. Another answer people think is that banks act as a sort of intermediary. You know, if you're a saver, you put your money in the bank and then they sort of lend it to somebody who needs money. Well, I suppose they sort of do that, but generally the loans they make come out of nothing. They just make them by typing the money into a computer. Okay? So both these views are fundamentally wrong. Banks' main role in the economy is to create money by extending credit out of nothing. Now, if you don't believe me, here are some quotations. First two from the Bank of England. Second one from a former governor of the Bank of Canada, 1939, so they've been doing this for a very long time. Another one from the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago. And the last one from the Bundesbank, 2009. So this has been going on a long time, and central banks and bankers, well, I'm not sure about bankers, but the central banks, I think, know what's going on. I'm not sure about the private banks. Okay? So this is known as a sort of fractional reserve banking system. Basically, banks, in theory at least, although I don't think they have to do this anymore, can extend credit according to a fraction of their total deposits are made. Well, even those rules have disappeared, starting in 1971 with Richard Nixon in the UK. So there are two rules. When a bank makes a loan, it creates money. When the loan is repaid, money is destroyed in the economy. So the result was excessive lending between 2008 and 2008. It's doubled the money supply from that figure to that figure in the UK. Now that's staggering. Why were they excessively lending in this period? Why did it all get out of hand? I mean, there have been problems like this for many, many years, but in the first decade of this century, things really did get out of hand. Now, why was that? Now, to understand that, you really need to know the pressures on people who work for banks and what they're under when they're actually asked to extend credit or make loans. So these are the incentives for bank staff. If they lend, somebody comes to them, they can either lend or they don't lend. If they lend, they'll receive a commission. If they keep doing it, they get a nice fat bonus at the end of the year. They keep their job, and eventually they get promoted. If they don't lend, they don't get any reward at all, no bonus, they don't keep their job. Now this second thing, this is true, this is actually true. In HBOS, which was a bank that had to be bailed out by the UK government in 2008, I think it was the northeast region of the UK, the annual sort of review, if you had reached your lending targets, you got your nice fat bonus. And if you didn't lend, you're actually publicly awarded with a cabbage. This is actually true. Really. By sources, if you just scroll down, by source was Paul Jones, who worked for HBOS, and who was fired actually for trying to say that this wasn't really a very good idea to do this. So, consequently, this is the amount of new money that's been created in the UK economy by commercial banks every year from 1990 to 2008. Just look at this. Look how it's gone up. In 2005, 2006, 2007, £266 billion worth of new money created in the UK economy in this period. Now, that causes me to worry. And it's the same, it was the same in the United States, it was the same in most European countries, certainly the same in Luxembourg, and it causes me to worry a bit, because there are terrible implications for this. There are implications for democracy. It's the private banks who are now determining economic policy by deciding how much they're going to lend, who they're going to lend it to. It's got implications for inequality, it's got implications for the price of housing. But the biggest implications for economic stability, and I really have to be fast. The system has created tremendous instability. More lending means more spending, you get an economic boom. In an economic boom, it's even easier to borrow. You're getting more debt means more interest and repayments have to be paid, as a result you end up with too much debt. So too much debt leads to defaults, default leads to banks stop lending. When banks stop lending, it shrinks the money supply, you get less spending, and you end up with recession. And our economy begins to look like this. There's an endless sequence of boom and bust. Now some people say, well, at least it's going up a bit. But since 2007, when the crisis occurred, there's been virtually no growth in Europe, and economists are predicting a double-dip recession, and some are actually predicting a depression. So those are my acknowledgements. I'd like to thank personally, especially as it's been filmed, Ben Dyson, for costing money, Geoffrey Collins, the culprit of where money comes from, who provided a lot of this data and provided inspiration for this tool.